Mark, thank you. And joining me live now is Democratic Congresswoman Carol Shea-Porter of New Hampshire. Congresswoman, thank you so very much for your time. I know that you've said you do not support military strike against Syria. You've been loyal to the administration, to the president. Is there anything that will change your mind between now and Tuesday or even after the president's remarks?
Well, while I'm still listening and looking at all the evidence and attending the briefings, I haven't seen anything that would make me change my mind at this point. And I don't see the risk for the national security, and maybe the president will have something different to say on Tuesday, but I haven't seen that yet. And I also do not see how going and doing an airstrike is actually going to somehow or another work in that civil war.
So is your primary concern national security, or that there's no end game? I mean, I think that if you read some of the op-eds, for example, the notion that there would be strategic strikes but not a regime change makes people wonder if that's even wishy-washy. How do you accomplish keeping Bashar al-Assad in power and yet stop him from continued activity after a limited airstrike?
Well, I'm concerned about that, too, and I want to know what the exit strategy would be. I mean, there are three possible scenarios. Nothing happens, and then what was the point? Or we accidentally topple Assad, and then I'd want to know who's going to secure those chemical weapons and who's going to stabilize the country, because we know there's an alphabet soup of bad guys running around there. And then the third thing is what if Assad decides to strike back in some way, either harm his people more or do something else?
What about what the President and Secretary Kerry have referred to as the moral responsibility, not just of the United States, but of the world? What about the moral responsibility? And we know that more than 100,000 lives lost in the past 2 years of this civil war, but to see those children, 400 or more, the 1,400 who died in that chemical weapons attack, what about that responsibility?
Well, I think there's a moral responsibility. I just don't agree that it has to be an airstrike. I think there's a moral responsibility to provide humanitarian aid, and I would say that the United States has paid more than anybody else, and that other countries should be involved in that. I would say there's a moral responsibility to isolate Assad and to try him in a criminal court, and eventually we'll get him. I would say there's a moral responsibility to try to keep anybody else from dying.
Congresswoman, thank you so much for your time and your passions on where you stand here. I know that you've said you've heard from your constituents, and your heart, if you will, reflects what you're hearing from them and your own moral convictions on this issue. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Still ahead.